15 hours, the FBI will discover they've wasted $70 million looking for money that was never there. But first, you need to understand the funeral. January 18th, 1983, Miami Beach. 25 mourners to bury the man the FBI called the most dangerous mobster in America. They had no idea they were watching the end of the greatest con in organized crime history. Act 1. The Funeral. It's drizzling, the kind of persistent Florida rain that doesn't cool anything, just makes the air harder to breathe. 25 people stand under cheap umbrellas at the graveside, watching as they lower Meyer Lansky into the ground next to his son Buddy, who died 6 months earlier. Not hundreds, not thousands. Not the parade of black cars and weeping widows you'd expect for someone who allegedly controlled the largest criminal empire in American history. Just 25 people, and 3 FBI agents standing 50 yards back, photographing license plates. Still searching, still believing, still convinced that somewhere, in a Swiss bank account, a Bahamian trust, buried in a Miami parking lot, there's $300 million waiting to be found. But there isn't. The agents don't know yet, standing in that rain, that they're watching the end of the greatest con in organized crime history. Not a con against banks or casinos or the American public, a con against the mob itself, against the FBI, against history. Meyer Lansky spent 50 years convincing everyone he was a financial genius who'd hidden a fortune so vast it could never be counted. He died broke, on disability, in a one-bedroom apartment, and he did it on purpose. Act 2. The Boy from Grodno. You have to go back 70 years to understand how a scrawny Jewish kid became the most feared man in American crime. Not because he killed people, but because he understood something none of them did. Numbers never lie. People always do. Grodno, in what's now Belarus, but was then part of the Russian Empire. Meyer Lansky is 9 years old when his mother tells him they're going to America. His father, a skilled worker, has already gone ahead. They're running from pogroms, the organized massacres that sweep through Jewish settlements like seasonal storms. The boy learns his first lesson here. Power respects only one thing: more power. They arrive at Ellis Island, and the immigration officer mangles Lansky into Lansky. The boy doesn't care about the name. He cares that his father, who was someone in Grodno, is now pressing pants in a Lower East Side sweatshop for 14 hours a day. Meyer is small, 5'4" on a good day. He'll never get taller. In the crush of Delancey Street and the Bowery, where Italian and Irish and Jewish kids battle for every inch of territory, being small means being prey. Except Meyer has something else. A gift for numbers that arranges themselves in three-dimensional patterns in his mind. He sees connections, percentages, probabilities before anyone else has finished reading the problem. A math teacher at PS 34 notices it first. You could be an accountant, the teacher tells him. A banker, maybe. Meyer is 14 when he drops out of school to work full-time. His family is starving. His father's lungs are giving out from chemical fumes. The American dream, Meyer concludes, is a rigged game, but unlike most people who reach that conclusion, he doesn't get bitter. He gets interested. Because if the game is rigged, you don't play fairly. You learn how the rigging works, and you rig it better. The partnership. Meyer meets Salvatore Lucania, better known as Lucky Luciano, on Delancey Street. The legend says Lucky is beating up Meyer when Meyer offers him a deal instead of begging for mercy. The legend is mostly bullshit. What actually happens? They're both running craps games, small-time gambling operations taking pennies from pushcart vendors and factory workers. Lucky's game is more profitable. Meyer's is cleaner. He doesn't cheat, obviously, so people come back. Lucky sees the value immediately. He's got the muscle and the charm. Meyer's got the percentages. You figure out how much we make, Lucky tells him. I'll figure out how we keep it. Meyer is 17. He asks the question that will define his entire life. How much do you want? Lucky laughs. All of it. Then we need to think bigger. Here's what Meyer understands that Lucky doesn't, not yet. Violence scales poorly. You can only shake down so many people before someone shoots you or arrests you, but systems scale forever. They start working together. Not just them, there's Bugsy Siegel, the beautiful psychopath who becomes Meyer's best friend. There's Frank Costello, who understands politics. There's a whole generation of young criminals who see that the old ways, the ethnic gangs, the street-level thuggery, are dying. Then Congress hands them the opportunity of a lifetime. January 1920, Prohibition begins. America outlaws alcohol and in doing so creates the most profitable black market in human history. The Golden Age. Meyer Lansky is 18 years old. He's about to help invent modern organized crime. Everyone remembers the violence of Prohibition, the St. Valentine's Day massacre, the Tommy gun shootouts, the bodies in the street. But Meyer sees something different. He sees logistics. Thousands of speakeasies need regular supply. They need alcohol that won't kill customers. They need protection from both cops and rivals. They need bookkeeping that can survive police raids. They need political connections, union cooperation, transportation networks. They need a corporation. Meyer doesn't drink. He never will throughout his entire life. While other gangsters are sampling their own product and making decisions drunk, Meyer stays sober and builds spreadsheets in his head. He sets up the Bugs and Meyer mob, mostly Jewish gangsters who handle enforcement and transportation. But Meyer's real innovation isn't the gang, it's the system behind it. He creates legitimate companies as fronts, trucking firms, laundry services, taxi companies. Money flows through them like water through a sieve, coming out clean on the other side. He keeps 2 sets of books, one for the IRS, one real one. The fake books are works of art, detailed enough to survive audit, boring enough that no one looks too closely. Make the lie tedious, he explains to Bugsy. People believe boring things. By 1925, Meyer is 23 and pulling down what would be millions in today's money. He's married to a woman named Anna, lives modestly in Brooklyn, wears suits off the rack. He looks like an accountant, a bookkeeper, maybe a shopkeeper having a decent year. This is intentional. The Syndicate. Lucky Luciano does something unprecedented. He murders the 2 most powerful mafia bosses in New York and proposes a new structure. The Commission, a board of directors for organized crime. The old bosses were dictators, ruling by personality and violence. Lucky's commission is different. It's corporate. 5 families in New York, plus representatives from other cities. They vote on disputes, they divide territories, they enforce rules. And who does Lucky put in charge of the money? Meyer Lansky is 29 years old when he becomes the chief financial officer of the American Mafia, except he's not even Italian. He's not made. He can never be made. But nobody cares because Meyer has made all of them richer than they ever imagined. He's doing something revolutionary. He's sharing. The old model was territorial. You controlled your block, your neighborhood, your city. Outsiders were enemies. But Meyer sees the inefficiency. Why fight over territory when you can cooperate and expand the market? He proposes joint ventures. The Jewish mobsters and the Italian families invest together in casinos, racetracks, nightclubs. Meyer calculates each partner's share down to the penny. He never steals, not from his partners anyway. The skim is built into the system, invisible to outsiders, but the mobsters get exactly what Meyer promises them. Trust, it turns out, is scalable. By the mid-1930s, Meyer Lansky has his fingers in operations across the country. Illegal gambling in Florida, casinos in New Orleans, union rackets in Detroit. He's building relationships with politicians, judges, police commissioners. Not through violence, through money. Clean money that's been laundered so thoroughly it doesn't smell like crime anymore. And he's watching, always watching. In 1936, Lucky Luciano gets arrested and convicted. He's sentenced to 30 to 50 years. The architect of the commission, gone. Bugsy Siegel is moving to Los Angeles. Frank Costello is becoming too visible. Meyer? Meyer fades into the background. This is exactly where he wants to be. Subscribe if you want to discover what Meyer Lansky did next and why the FBI's $70 million investigation would lead them nowhere. The Cuban operation. The war is over. America is rich and ready to spend. Meyer Lansky sees the next opportunity before anyone else. Cuba. 90 miles from Florida, friendly dictator in Fulgencio Batista. Desperate for American investment and completely unregulated. Meyer has been cultivating Batista for years. He proposes a deal. Let American mobsters build casinos in Havana, and Cuba gets a cut of everything. Batista agrees. Why wouldn't he? Meyer's offering millions in development and a percentage of the profits. It's the deal of a lifetime. Except Meyer is building something bigger. He's not just running casinos, he's creating a prototype for how organized crime will work in the modern world. The hotels and casinos in Havana are legitimate businesses on paper. They employ thousands of Cubans. They pay taxes, some taxes anyway. They attract American tourists by the thousands. And buried in all that legitimate activity, invisible to everyone except Meyer, is the skim. The skim is beautiful. Every casino takes in money, some recorded, some not. The recorded money gets reported, taxed, distributed to shareholders. The unrecorded money disappears into a separate system entirely. It's not stealing if it was never officially there in the first place. Meyer sets up the system, then trains others to run it. He's in Havana maybe 3 months a year. The rest of the time he's in Miami or New York or traveling to operations in Las Vegas, where Bugsy Siegel is building the Flamingo with mob money and increasingly grandiose delusions. Bugsy is killed, shot in the eye in Beverly Hills. The official story is he was skimming too much, building too slowly, making enemies. Meyer never confirms it, never denies it. Bugsy was his best friend, but Bugsy violated the fundamental rule: the numbers have to balance. According to everyone who knew him, Meyer cried when he heard about Bugsy's death. He also immediately sent people to take over the Flamingo's books. This is who Meyer Lansky is: sentimental and ruthless, loyal and practical. He loves his friend. He also cannot allow the system to be compromised. By 1950, the Cuban operation is generating tens of millions annually. Meyer takes his cut, rumored to be enormous, and does something unexpected. He lives like a middle-class accountant. The illusion. This is where the con begins. Not the con against the law. Meyer's been running that since Prohibition. The con against everyone. The FBI, increasingly interested in organized crime, starts building a file on Meyer Lansky. They interview informants, they follow money trails, they wiretap phones. And every piece of intelligence they gather confirms the same thing. Meyer Lansky is worth a fortune. Hundreds of millions, maybe billions in today's money. Except here's what the FBI doesn't understand. They're not investigating Meyer Lansky's wealth. They're investigating his reputation. Meyer doesn't correct them. Why would he? Every time a newspaper calls him the mob's financial genius or the criminal mastermind behind organized crime, his stock rises. Not with the FBI, with the mobsters. Because here's the thing about organized crime, it's built on fear and respect. And nothing generates respect like everyone believing you're untouchably rich. Meyer lives in a nice house in Miami Beach. Not a mansion, a nice house. He drives a decent car. He belongs to a country club. He takes his wife to dinner at moderately expensive restaurants. He looks successful, comfortable, like a businessman having a good run. And everyone, the FBI, the mobsters, the journalists, extrapolates from there. If this is how he lives while being careful, imagine what he's really worth. The mobsters see the FBI investigating Meyer and assume there must be something enormous to find. The FBI sees the mobsters treating Meyer with deference and assumes they're protecting his fortune. Neither questions the fundamental assumption. But what if there is no fortune? What if Meyer Lansky's greatest achievement isn't accumulating wealth, it's convincing everyone he did? The fall. Castro takes over Cuba. In a single day, Meyer Lansky loses his entire Cuban operation. The casinos are seized, the hotels are nationalized, millions in assets gone. Meyer is 57 years old. By all accounts, this should destroy him financially. It doesn't even slow him down. He moves operations to the Bahamas. He invests in Vegas casinos. He maintains his position in the commission. The mob still treats him as the financial genius. The FBI still investigates him as America's wealthiest criminal. But something has changed. Meyer is pulling back, delegating more, spending time with his family, especially his son Buddy, who has cerebral palsy and requires constant care. In 1970, Meyer is indicted for tax evasion. The charges won't stick, they never do, but Meyer knows the pressure is increasing. He's 70 years old. The golden age of organized crime is ending. The young gangsters are reckless, flashy, exactly what Meyer always warned against. He applies for Israeli citizenship. Israel refuses him. After a 2-year legal battle, they deport him back to the United States. Meyer returns to Miami Beach. He's 73. The FBI is still watching, still investigating, still searching for the fortune. Like this story? Share it with someone who loves true crime. And stick around to learn what the FBI actually found when they finally caught up to Meyer Lansky. The truth. Here's what the FBI eventually discovers after Meyer Lansky is dead and buried next to his son. His estate is worth approximately $57,000. Not $57 million, $57,000. The price of a modest house in 1983. The IRS has been investigating him for decades, trying to prove he's hidden hundreds of millions in offshore accounts. They find nothing. No Swiss banks, no Bahamian trusts, no safety deposit boxes full of cash. His monthly income at death, $1,000 disability check from the government. His residence, a 1-bedroom apartment. His assets, some modest investments, maybe a small amount in savings. The FBI's conclusion? He must have moved it all, hidden it better than anyone in history, created a system so sophisticated they'll never crack it. But what if there was nothing to hide? Let's do the math, Meyer's favorite thing, the numbers that never lie. Yes, Meyer made enormous amounts of money over 50 years. Tens of millions certainly in pre-inflation dollars. But consider what happened to that money. He split everything with partners. The commission structure meant every operation was a joint venture. He lost Cuba, millions in assets gone overnight in 1959. He had enormous legal bills, decades of lawyers fighting indictments, the Israel deportation case, endless IRS audits. He supported an extended family. His son Buddy required full-time medical care, expensive medical care. He paid tribute up. He was valuable, but not the boss. He paid a percentage to whoever was running the commission. And maybe, just maybe, he never took as much as everyone thought. Maybe the legendary financial genius understood something deeper than simple accumulation. Maybe Meyer Lansky realized that appearing wealthy was more valuable than being wealthy. Think about what Meyer's reputation bought him. Respect from mobsters who might otherwise have killed him for being an outsider, a non-Italian, someone who couldn't be made. Fear from enemies who assumed attacking him meant fighting someone with unlimited resources. Attention from the FBI, which sounds bad but actually kept him safe. The mob couldn't kill someone the FBI was actively investigating. The con. And most importantly, leverage. As long as everyone believed Meyer controlled a massive fortune, he had power in negotiations. He could make promises, offer investments, broker deals, all backed by the perception of limitless wealth. The perception was the product. Meyer Lansky's greatest invention wasn't a money laundering system or a casino skim. It was the legend of Meyer Lansky. He lived modestly because he had to, because the money was never as much as everyone thought. But that modest lifestyle also provided cover. See, he's not flashy, he's careful. That's why we can't find the fortune. He's too smart. The FBI spent an estimated $70 million investigating Meyer Lansky over 4 decades. They assigned dozens of agents. They conducted thousands of interviews. They analyzed financial records from 30 countries, and they found a 70-year-old man on disability living in a 1-bedroom apartment. The greatest trick Meyer Lansky ever pulled wasn't making his fortune disappear. It was making everyone believe there was a fortune in the first place. The funeral reprise. January 18, 1983, Miami Beach, 25 mourners. The FBI agents photograph the license plates and file their reports and continue investigating. They'll investigate for years after Meyer's death, convinced they're missing something. They're not missing anything. They're seeing exactly what Meyer wanted them to see. One of the mourners is Meyer's grandson, Meyer Lansky II. Years later, he'll be asked about the legendary fortune. He'll smile, his grandfather's smile, and say, "If it existed, don't you think we would have found it?" But here's the thing. Maybe the fortune did exist, just not in the form everyone imagined. Meyer Lansky ran operations across the globe for 50 years without being convicted of a major crime. He built the financial infrastructure of organized crime in America. He negotiated between families that would have destroyed each other without his mediation. He lived through the mob's entire golden age, from Prohibition to the 1980s, and died peacefully in bed. In a business where the average life expectancy was about 45 years, where betrayal was currency and violence was language, Meyer Lansky lived to be 80. He buried his son, his best friend, all his old partners. Lucky Luciano died in Italy. Bugsy Siegel was shot in the face. Frank Costello was shot in the head and somehow survived but died diminished and depressed. Vito Genovese died in prison. Joe Adonis was deported. Albert Anastasia was shot in a barber shop. Meyer died in his apartment, watching television, having eaten his favorite meal prepared by his wife. That's the fortune, not $300 million in a Swiss bank account. The ability to walk away. To build a system so valuable that killing him was worse for everyone than letting him live. The man who understood numbers better than anyone understood the most important calculation. The only way to beat the game is not to play it the way everyone expects. The legend of Meyer Lansky says he was the most brilliant criminal mind in American history, the man who hid a fortune so vast it could never be found. The truth is simpler and somehow more impressive. Meyer Lansky was a small Jewish kid from Belarus who figured out that in America, criminal or legitimate, the real power isn't in having money. It's in people believing you have money. It's in being valuable, indispensable, too important to kill, too connected to convict, too careful to catch. He wasn't the richest mobster. He was the smartest. And he was smart enough to know that looking like an accountant was better than looking like a king, that dying broke was better than dying rich, because dying rich means dying with enemies who want what you have. The FBI wasted $70 million and 40 years looking for Meyer Lansky's hidden fortune. They never considered that maybe, just maybe, the fortune was hidden in plain sight, not in a bank account, in a reputation, in the most valuable thing Meyer Lansky ever owned, the belief that Meyer Lansky was invaluable. What do you think? Did Meyer Lansky take everything with him to the grave? Or was there never anything to take? Drop a comment below and let me know your theory. If you loved this story about the greatest con in organized crime history, hit subscribe and the notification bell. New stories every week. Want the complete untold stories of Meyer Lansky and the rise of organized crime in America? The full book is available on Amazon. Discover what really happened behind the scenes of the Mafia's golden age.